Alright, so our next step here is we're going to be fine-tuning this draw function to get it the way that we want. So first off, we're going to go to move to. So rather than saying move to this dot x, we're actually going to move to the last point dot x. That's where we're starting. And then rather than this dot y, we're going to say last point dot y. Right? And then here we're going to go ahead and move to this dot x and this dot y. And now you see we have circles and they're constantly moving down. Alright, so we're getting closer and closer to our objective, which is this. Now these, they have an oscillating movement. They're going side to side. Well, how is it that we're doing that? Well, we're using this thing called cosine, where basically earlier we declared for this variable that there's a this dot rad, which is radians. And so that's the angle in radians. So we're going to give it a certain angle, and then we're going to take the cosine of that and apply it to the x value, the x position. And that's how we're going to have it oscillating back and forth, side to side, as it's moving down in the y direction. Alright, so the way that we're going to do this is we're going to say in the update function we want to update the radians. That's the first thing. So in the update we're going to go ahead and we're going to say this dot rad is going to plus equal this dot, or rather not this dot, how much do we want it to change? Well, we want it to change 1 over pi. And then we don't want it to be, well, let's just start off at 1 over pi and you'll see the speed in which it changes. Then we'll fine tune it. Right? So we're going to increment it 1 over pi times every time it's called. So perhaps 60 frames per second. So every frame it's going to increment by 1 over pi degrees. So here we're going to go and we're going to say move to. So for the x it's going to be plus cosine, and remember we already declared that as a constant function earlier at the top of the file. And it's going to be cos of this dot rad. And now you can see there's a little shake, there's a little jiggle, and that's because we need to do this as well. So we don't want one point to be somewhere and then another point somewhere else. So it's oscillating pretty quickly. That's great. But we also want this to, I guess you could say, have a more dramatic change in the x direction. So let's do it like this. We'll say multiplied by 10. Now you get some weird stuff going, but it's kind of cool looking, huh? Multiplied by 100. Now that's an interesting animation all by itself, but we're not going to do that one. We'll just say multiplied by 100. Now they're going to be moving side to side, and you get this really weird thing. But you can see, because I'm using lines, that if I do one and not the other, I'll get an interesting effect. But alright, we're gonna go with 50. And so they're moving a decent amount. Alright, and so, but we want to change the speed in which it's changing. Now the way that we change the speed is by changing the rate of the degrees. So the speed of the degrees that change. So we're going to multiply it by 0.1 and we'll see what it gets. So 1/10 the speed. That's pretty good. That's not bad. Still a little bit too obvious. So we're going to put it down to 0.01, 1/100th of the speed. Now we're getting really close to what we were at before. If we look here, we can see the way that it's flowing, and we're almost there. It's flowing almost the exact same way. So now we got to do a little bit of checking, and we have reached. So let's see if we readjust this. All right, it reinitiated. So every time you can see that when we change it, we are resizing the canvas, and the particles are being reinitialized. The canvas is being reinitialized. It's kind of cool looking, huh? But yeah, there you go. The last thing I want to do is I want to go here for the body, and I want to say overflow is going to be hidden, because that scroll wheel really annoys me. And now you can see it's changing. Because of the browser, it's not really matching. It should be the full length, but it doesn't do it. So for example, here again, you can see that the canvas ends there, but when we refresh, it'll, oh, let me save first. When we refresh, it'll actually match the way that it's meant to match the body's height. It covers the full length of the body. But yeah, so there we go. The last thing, I'm actually not going to do this in this video, but you can, and I didn't get this perfect, but here in the resize, right? This scenario here where it says need to revisit at the end for fine tuning. Initially, when it comes to mobile views and orientation change and resizing anytime the window size changes, it gets a bit tricky because you don't want this to happen every time the person swipes or drags to scroll on their mobile device. So you want to set a minimum difference. So when the screen size changes by a certain amount, then reset the canvas. Otherwise, it's not worth the time. Or when the orientation changes, that's when you do the resize. So getting those things down is still a bit tricky. So I'm going to leave it at that for now. But there you go. There we have it. We can go to change view and go to the full page view. And we can see that we pretty much got what we have over here. The color transitions. Does it transition though? Oh. Well, let's double check. When it gets reinitialized, I should see a color change. I'm not seeing much of a color change. So I almost forgot. Wow. Good to know. Good to know. So last thing is when it's reinitialized, how do we change the color? Well, all we're going to do is we're going to keep moving it down the color wheel. So we're going to say hue this dot h plus equals we could set how much we actually want it to increment. For this one, I'm going to say that I want it to increment by 50. So we're going to say plus equals 50. And now the color should transition. Let's see. So maybe it's premature. Maybe I missed something else, but I'm pretty sure we got it this time. It's looking how it's supposed to look. I'm getting some green now. There we go, slowly transitioning to green. Now you could change the rate to make it faster. And what you'll get, I don't like it going a bit too fast because you'll get dramatic changes. And I want it to be a bit more gradual. I want things to clear out fully before you get the next color coming in. But you could choose your preference. You could also give it a different fill. It doesn't have to be just color, or you could give it a different stroke style, I'm sure. For me, this worked. Check the different browsers because it may not function exactly the same. There's definitely variation, but it's kind of cool. All right. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. I'm going to be improving and trying to put out more of these tutorials or code throughs, whatever you want to call them, just to demonstrate how to conceptualize and build out what I have seen and the best way that I learned, which is looking at what others have done and breaking it down into simple terms and reconstructing it, adding my own twist and ideas in it. All right. Thanks. And again, like and subscribe. Much appreciated. Take care.